It is always a good night when the Leafs lose to the Sens, and you know what makes it even better? When the Sens dominate. Um, if you look at the score of tonight's game, you might think, okay, the Sens played pretty well tonight. The score does not tell the story. I think this game ends up being closer than it probably should have. The Sens were absolutely on fire tonight. There was one part in the game, one section I was not really a fan of, but we'll get to that soon. Um, but this ends up being a huge win, one the Sens had to have, and they did. They had to win this one because, everyone else they're chasing continues to win every single night as well. And we're going to be talking about the standings more towards the end of the video, of course. So, Game 69 of the season was played on Saturday, March 21st against the Toronto Maple Leafs, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Start Time. This is the third meeting of the season between these two teams. The teams split the first two meetings. And a little fun fact here, but the Sens have scored 5 goals in each of the 3 games against the Leafs this season. So there you go, little fun fact. Starting goalies were Linus Ullmark and Anthony Stolarz was supposed to start tonight, but he actually got injured during warm-ups. He took a shot up high, and he went to the hospital just for precautionary reasons. So Woll ended up starting tonight, and right away I'm thinking, okay, this is an advantage big time for the Sens because the Leafs played last night, the Sens didn't play last night, and Woll also started last night as well. So this is a huge advantage for the Sens, and in my mind I'm just thinking, they gotta have this one, and they did. But it did get interesting during one part of the game, which we'll get to. So the Sens were 35, 24, and 9 coming into tonight. Then the Leafs were 29, 28, and 13 coming into tonight. And yeah, this is just when you look at the stats, they kind of do tell the story, to be honest. And yeah, it's always a good night when the Sens beat the Leafs, and even better when they dominate. Alright, so let's take a look at the stats for tonight's game, and there is one stat that really jumps out at you. I know, you're probably looking at it right now. So the Sens win by a score of 5-2 over the Leafs. The Leafs now drop to 500. They're 29, 29, and 13. The Sens move up to 36, 24, and 9. Look at the shots. 43-14 in favor of the Sens. Somebody's going to have to do a fact check on this because this might be the biggest shot differential of the season for the Sens. Don't quote me on that, but it might be. That's crazy. I couldn't believe it. Like 14 shots against. Just an amazing game, amazing effort. Face-off percentage, so little fun fact here, this is actually the top 2 teams in the league for face-off percentage. The Sens do win a majority of the face-offs, 55.9%, 44.1% for the Leafs, and their special teams were good. Leafs go 0 for 3 on the power play, Sens go 1 for 4, so they also go 3 for 3 on their penalty kill, which you love to see. It has been better lately, and they're going to have to continue doing that down the stretch here. So penalty minutes were 10-8, Leafs having the most. Hits were 22-17 in favor of the Sens. Block shots 14-6 in favor of the Sens. 17 giveaways for the Leafs and 14 for the Sens. And look at the takeaways, 10-2 in favor of the Sens. And they have one more meeting of the season, this season I should say, and that'll be on April 15th in Ottawa. And I do believe that is the final game of the season for the Sens anyway. So yes, we will be seeing them one more time this year. So we're going to go ahead and go through my notes. I did not do a watch party for tonight's game. Usually I don't do watch parties for the weekend games. So yeah, we're just going to go ahead and dive right into it here. So we kick things off, and there is a scrum in front of the Leaf net. It leads to offsetting minors to Pinto and Domi, so we'd play 4-on-4. And I forget what the stat was now. The Sens, they've been outscored 2-0 4-on-4 this season. I might be wrong about that, but just an interesting stat there. Not really too much going on early on offensively for either team. The Sens, they honestly look kind of tired at the start of the game. I didn't really love their first period tonight. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, the Leafs should be the tired team because they were the ones who played last night. The Sens did not play last night, but they kind of looked tired at the start of the game. But this team is wildly unpredictable. They can look like a completely different team in the next period, which, hint, hint, they did. There was a one-timer that was stopped by Allmark, and Gilbert, he would take a very, very careless penalty here for closing his hand on the puck, and there's just no reason for it. But what I find funny about this, so I was watching this game on Sportsnet, it said concealing puck. That's what the penalty was for. I'm thinking, like, don't think I've ever seen that called a penalty. Concealing puck? Anyways, ends up being a power play for the Leafs. They don't score on it. Of course, they do go 0 for 3 on their power play. Ekman Larsson, I'm going to say his name a few times tonight. I felt like he was everywhere tonight. He would take a penalty for hitting Giroux from behind. This is a bad play. This could have been worse. Giroux gets up. He was okay. He would stay in the game. So we would play 4-on-4 again. So the Sens have just 2 shots halfway through the first period, and in my mind, I'm thinking this is just not good enough. Again, their first period was not fantastic. Like 2 shots halfway through the period. This is a team that's looking pretty fragile lately, and the Leafs, they got to be better, and they were, thankfully, luckily. So Dylan Cousins would make a strong play to the net, but he was stopped by Wall. And then Michelli would take a tripping penalty. So the Sens go back to the power play. And Stützle, not wearing the Stützle jersey for tonight, but he would walk in on the power play and he would rip one short side to make it 1-0 Sens. So Stützle, I did pick him to score in the Tim Hortons picks tonight. So he does score his 32nd of the season on the power play from Chabot and Batherson at the 14:58 mark. And the Sens go up 1-0. They needed that. So then there is a turnover by Toronto. This leads to a good save by Wall on Eller. And then Spence would have a shot that was stopped, and then he would miss on his own rebound. But this was another good chance. The Leafs were very, very sloppy. You can see the 17 giveaways, but honestly, it kind of felt like more than that. There were a lot of giveaways tonight. So we end the first period. The Sens are up 1-0, so we're feeling good. Shots were 9-6 the Sens, for the Sens in the first period. It just, I don't know, not a terrific first half of the first period. They started to turn it on a little bit towards the end of the period. But after the first period, they completely took over the game. Completely. So, we roll into the second period, and there was a horrendous giveaway by the Leafs right in front of their own net, but the Sens can't capitalize. There was a rebound chance for the Leafs. This would go just wide of the net, and this period is flying by. I didn't put it in my notes, but I think we played like 6 minutes and something without a whistle to start the period, so we're just flying through it. I don't know what's going on. I guess the guys wanted to get out of here as soon as possible. Myers ends up losing a skate blade. There were a couple of players that lost a skate blade tonight. And then Stützle would get called for goalie interference. He might have been pushed in a little bit, question mark. I don't know, but he wasn't really arguing it too much, so I guess, okay, penalty. So then, on the power play, Michelli would get robbed by a huge glove save by Allmark, and the Sens do kill off that power play. So Zub would have a point shot. This would get tipped in by Greg, but they would review this for a high stick, and you could tell right away as soon as they showed the replay, it was a high stick, very clear, very obvious. Greg wasn't arguing it or anything. So this goal does get called back. It stays 1-0, and yeah, but the Sens they're coming out flying in the second period. So there was another point shot that was tipped by Giroux that was stopped by Wall, and then Giroux would score on his own rebound. So this, never mind, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Giroux would make it 2-0 Sens with his 12th of the season from Clevin and Spence at the 9:09 mark, and they're pouring it on in the second period here. So then Quillen would take a penalty for interference, so back to the power play for the Sens. So there was a one-timer that was stopped by Woll. The Leafs end up killing this off. And I put in my notes, the Sens are completely taking over the game at this point. So we have 5 minutes left in the second period. The shots are 24-9 for the Sens. So then, Amadio would make a heck of a move around McCabe here, and he would end up hitting the post. This would have been a beauty of a goal if this went in, but ends up hitting the post there. So then, there was another brutal giveaway by the Leafs right to Foegele, and he scores. This is kind of a bad goal on Woll here, but Foegele scores. He's been looking really good. I've always been a fan of Foegele, but he's looked really good so far with the Sens. So Foegele scores his 11th of the season at the 17:53 mark, and the Sens go up 3-0, and it could be worse, way worse at this point. So they go up 3-0, and they start to sit back just a little bit, right? And when they go up 3-0, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling good, obviously, right? Because your team's up 3-0, but never get your hopes up too much with this team. Don't do it. So Gru would get a good look, but he was stopped. And then Woll would make a really awful giveaway here, and this was knocked down by Amadio in midair, and he couldn't get the puck to settle down here, but if he did, he would have had a wide open net basically. So this game could be like 6-0 at this point, and I'm not exaggerating. So then, back the other way, the Leafs would get a 3-on-1. They don't get a shot here, but Amadio ends up taking a hooking penalty. So he might have saved a goal there, so that is a good play by Amadio. So I'm not upset with that. But Tavares would end up scoring at the 18-14 mark. That was actually before that 3-on-1, I think, right? I didn't put that in my notes. But anyways, Tavares would score to make it 3-1 late in the second period from Cowan and Carlo. And this is what I mean. They kind of sit back just a little bit here. So we go into the second intermission. The shots in the second period, 19-5 in favor of the Sens. Just completely dominating at this point. So after 2 periods, the shots are, 28-11 for the Sens. So we roll on to the third period, and the Leafs do start with a power play, and they don't score on it. So Ekman-Larsson would get a good chance. He was stopped by Ullmark. Big save there by him. And then here's the other losing the escape late incident that I mentioned. So Eller would lose escape late as well. Thankfully, it didn't cost the Sens. And yeah, they do kill off that power play. So then there was a brutal turnover by Nick Cousins right at his own blue line. All he has to do is chip it out, but he didn't. And this ends up in the back of their net. So it is now 3-2. So Cowan ends up scoring from Benoit and Nylander at the 4:52 mark, and what was a 3-0 lead is now 3-2. So just never get your hopes up with this team, right? And they are dominating. They are completely dominating this game. Like the shots are like 30-13 at this point, something like that, but they're only up by 1. And the Sens, they were getting chance after chance, really solid, grade A chances. Nothing was going in. And in my mind, I'm thinking, don't let the Leafs shoot, or it's probably going to go in. But thankfully, nothing else went in tonight. So Spence would get a shot. He would have a shot that would go wide. This would bounce off the boards right to Amadio, and he would score. Amadio deserves this. He had a really good game tonight. Of course, he had that very near amazing goal that hit the post earlier. So Amadio scores his 12th of the season from Spence and Pinto at the 9:41 mark, and now the Sens are up for 4-2. So we're looking pretty good. So the Sens enter the zone on a 3-on-2. Dylan Cousins gives it to Greg, and he goes to the backhand and he scores. So Greg scores his 11th of the season from Dylan Cousins and Clevin at the 13:11 mark, and the Sens go up 5-2, and of course that ends up being your final. And yeah, not too much else in my notes here. Ekman-Larsson would have a shoulder-to-shoulder hit on Gilbert, and there's nothing wrong with this hit. It was just a good, solid hit. But Gilbert was very slow getting up. He was hurt on the play. I haven't heard anything with him. I don't know if he's going to be back for the next game or what the deal is, but the Sens cannot afford to lose any more defensemen now. Of course, Sanderson is still out. Jensen's out for a while. They cannot afford to lose another defenseman. So, yeah, I don't know what the situation is with Gilbert, but hopefully he's okay. So, yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with him. And again, nothing wrong with the hit. It's just like a shoulder to shoulder on the glass. Just hit him awkwardly, I guess. So the Leafs would pull Wall for the extra attacker. The Sens don't end up scoring an empty netter. They had one chance. I think it was Pinto going for it, but he misses the empty net. Then Ekman Larson would take a tripping penalty late, but the Sens don't score on it, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, 5-2 ends up being your final, and this was just a dominant win, dominant performance tonight. So the 3 stars of the game, Giroux gets the first star. He had a goal. Star number 2 was Spence. He had 2 assists. And the third star was Clevin, who also had 2 assists. So everybody was chipping in tonight, which is really good to see. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the box score for the Sens. So starting off with the forwards, no forward had more than 1 point, but a lot of guys had points tonight. So for goals, we got Stützle, Amadio, Giroux, Fogle, and Gregg. They all had a goal. And then Dylan Cousins and Batherson and Pinto all had 1 assist. Plus minus Kachuk, Dylan Cousins, and Giroux were all +2. Amadio, Fogle, and Eller were all +1. Pinto was -1. Nick Cousins was -2. Somehow found a way to be -2. I'm having a hard time speaking apparently, but that's nothing new. Ice time leader was Stützle with 1904. Shot leader was Giroux with 7. Holy cow. I mean, I know Giroux was everywhere tonight, but 7 shots for Giroux. Dylan Cousins led the way in blocks with 3, and Batherson had the most hits with 4. And then taking a look at the defenseman stats here, as mentioned, Spence and Clevin both had 2 assists. Chabot had 1 assist. Plus minus, Spence and Clevin were +2. Gilbert and Matt and Paolo were +1. And Zub and Chabot were -1. Of course, ice time leader, we know it's going to be Chabot now without Sanderson playing. He didn't play 30 minutes. He played 28-36, which is still a lot, but at least it wasn't 30 minutes. So that happened. Leading the way in shots was Spence with 5. And Chabot led the way in blocks with 3. And Clevin had the most hits with 2. So if we take a look at Ullmark's save percentage, it's another rough one. He stops 12 out of 14 for an .857 save percentage, but I don't know how much I blame him on the 2 goals, really. I mean, he did make some big saves, and, you know, if your goalie is going to struggle, then you're going to have to score your way into victories, which the Sens kind of did tonight. But yeah, not too much I want to complain about here. Just I didn't really love the start to the first period and the way they ended the second period and kind of carried over a little bit into the third period. They let the Leafs back in a little bit, but that's just nitpicking, right? At the end of the day, they win 5-2. It's a big win, and I'm always a happy camper when the Sens beat the Leafs. I don't know why I can't talk tonight. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, this is a big win, man. So we're going to take a look at the standings here. Now, I literally have the Bruins and Red Wings on right now. It is 3-2 Bruins. Fingers crossed that this game does not go to overtime, because we do not need to see that. But I'm not going to lie, I'm getting kind of frustrated when I look at the out-of-town scoreboard and the standings every night, because everybody keeps on winning. It's ridiculous. So currently, as it stands right now, not counting the Bruins and Red Wings game, that result, the Sens are 3 points out of a playoff spot. So they're at 81 points. The Bruins and Red Wings are both tied at 84. So that's why we do not want this game to go to overtime. But now that I said that, it's probably going to. So it feels like they have to win every single game, truly, because everybody keeps winning. The Islanders did lose tonight. Montreal did win. Columbus won. Yeah, they just they got to keep playing the same way, and they're gonna make it interesting. I'm really praying that game does not go to overtime. It better not. But yeah, the Sens are still playing great, and we'll see if they can continue that. So their next opponent will be another game they should win against the Rangers on Monday, March 23rd, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Start Time. And I do plan to do a watch party for this one, so maybe I'll see some of you guys over there. And yeah, the Rangers are dead last in the East. They are 7 points behind the next team, which is actually the Leafs and the Panthers. So yeah, that's another game the Sens should win, and the Rangers have been going through it at home this season. They have just 9 home wins. So yeah, this is a game the Sens should win as well. So we will see what happens. But yeah, that's pretty much all I want to say. This is a completely dominant effort. Again, you just look at the shots and the zone time, and yeah, 43-14. Again, we got to get some fact checks on that because this might be the biggest shot differential of the season for the Sens, and it might not be close. So yeah, big win for the Sens. Again, it is always a good time when the Sens beat the Leafs, even better when they dominate. So the Sens win by a score of 5-2 over the Leafs, and they will be looking to continue their hot streak against the New York Rangers on Monday. So I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and go Sens go.